Hey guys, I just watched episode 4 of Chasing the Sun. Oh man, that ending it really tugged some heartstrings. Bungin Bunabi, after winning against England, was sitting in the changing room by himself, just burst out in tears, crying. And and then he went on to, all the coaches came in and told him you did great, and he was just like hugging Rassi Rasmus. Oh man, if you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, it's just rugby. It's the life of a front rower. And it's there's so much that goes into these players. There's so much emotion and preparation goes into these players in the scrummaging, and you just don't get, people just don't understand how much these guys actually go through on a weekly basis to prepare themselves to win those scrums and to win those tough battles in the forwards, right? And you have these commentators that come out and say, "Oh, this is boring. Scrum, it's slowing the game down. We need to speed it up. Nobody wants to see this." And it's just, they just don't understand rugby. And, if I played a scrum, I play a front rower, that's my jersey right there. And, I couldn't play anymore because my neck couldn't handle it. I had to see a doctor for a very long time after playing because my neck and back was like cracking, and I was a teenager. I was like 18, and my neck was cracking every time I moved. And it's one of the toughest things you can do in all of sports in the world. And if you ask a front rower, if you ask Bungi, if you ask anybody, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? And they're not gonna say getting a red card. They're not gonna say dropping the ball before the try line. They're gonna say the worst thing that could happen in the game of rugby is losing a scrum. Yeah, and to win that final scrum, getting that penalty under so much pressure for the entire game, man, would have been overwhelming emotionally, physically. Just the amount of pressure, and you play the game for almost 80 minutes, and you are asked to do the most physically demanding thing in the game of rugby, in just about any sport in the world. Not just do it, you can't just hold it. You have to win it. You have to win it with a penalty decisively. You have to impose your will, your physicality decisively over your opposition to get the penalty. And that's how hard it was, guys. That's why Bungi broke down in tears. And that is why all these pundits should be fucking fired for saying that scrum is boring and they don't understand an ounce of what goes into a scrum. And they don't understand how hard it is. You're struggling to stand on your feet after 78 minutes, and then you have to push against a ton of human mass for your country, for your loved ones, for your kids, for your parents. It's just unbelievable how much these guys went through. And like I said, if you get it, you see what Bungi was doing. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, it's just rugby. It's what rugby is about. And I don't think I've ever seen another sport where a team had won the game and the vice captain breaks down in the change room by himself because he doesn't want everybody else to see it, right? He doesn't want to cry in front of all the boys. He doesn't want to cry in front of the fans. Tucked away by himself in the change room, broken down crying, overwhelmed by the emotions. That is rugby. That is just rugby. And boy, what another beautiful episode of Chasing the Sun. And a lot of you guys told me this was going to be a scrum about an episode about scrummaging, and sure enough, it was unbelievable. There's so much to talk about, and let's just go from the beginning. So the episode started with halfway point between the French game, the Springboks versus French game. Eben Esbeth still in the bin. Springboks was down 16 points to 25, I believe it was. And Eben just kind of came back onto the field. There was a penalty right in front of the goalpost. I thought they would have surely gone for the scrum or the line out for back on the set piece. The South Africans decided to tap and go. And with Eben back onto the field and I guess taking a 10-minute break, too much resting. Come on, get back Get rid of the yellow cards. It's too much resting for the players. And then he was just on the field, hungry. You can see the change in his face. The mentality has changed, and he pummels himself through for a try for the Springboks. And there was, Wildkard Smith came onto the field after that. I think it was already at this point. And then after that, the Springboks was ahead by 1 point. Wildkard Smith, the infamous breakdown, the one that's talked about. Is he on the ground? Is he supporting his body weight? One hand on the ball, one hand on the ground. Referee Ben O'Keefe said, good enough, turnover. And Handré Pollard, 50-plus meter penalty goal to put the Springboks 4 points ahead. And just before the kick, Bongi Mbonambi told Handré Pollard for South Africa. I've heard rumors about this, what he said. I've heard news articles written up about what he said. This is the first time I actually heard it through the microphone for South Africa. And he did get a goal. He did manage to kick this one. And Rassie Erasmus was musing afterwards, saying that it would have been awful if he had actually missed this kick after Bongi told him to do it for South Africa. It would have been just awful, and he was laughing and joking about it. I mean, it was a tough kick, 50 plus meters, and it's not gonna be it's not a guaranteed, and it's not a guaranteed kick. But Handré Pollard, the championship quality player that he was, no problem, pumped that over. And then they went to the moment that Faf de Klerk gave 62 million South Africans a heart attack when he kicked the ball away when there was only 1 minute left on the clock. And at that time, the documentary actually reviewed that there was a little disagreement with what they wanted to do. Dion Fourie was on the camp that I think of with the rest of us, most of us, I guess, to hold on to the ball. But Faf de Klerk, along with Handré Pollard, decided that they should kick the ball away. They can't hold on to the ball because the Springboks have a really good defense, and because of the fact that they recognize that it's easier to defend and push the attack backwards than apply pressure to push the attacking backwards than actually running the ball. So they back on their defense, but I still think that Faf probably should kick that ball a little bit deeper instead of the halfway point because they're still in penalty range. You could still give away the penalty. They trap you after you make the tackle on the ground, and then it's game over, right? So yeah, they kick the ball away, and then eventually it was Faf de Klerk himself ripping the ball out of, I think his name was Aldeguerri, the French prop, and Ardensa kicked the ball out, game over, and boy, this was incredible. And you can see the emotions, again, from the players, from the fans, from the French fans. It's just rugby. The French fans were just distraught. They wanted this so bad, and it was just utter, like a funeral at a stadium. It was utter disappointment in the French crowd, and it was very sad to see. But it's just rugby, and a lot of times in rugby, that is the difference. The people that you play for, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical toughness all comes together to make that 1 point difference to win the game. And the South Africans defended with everything they had, and they, it's just rugby. You come out the winners in the end of the day. There was one thing I would like to question, okay? Why is Damian Willemse with his pants off in the post-match function? In the change room immediately after the match was finished. Okay, everybody's got their pants on. Everybody still has their jerseys on. Damian Willemse still has his jerseys on, right? And his pants are off. He's just standing there, right, in his South African flagged, swim trunks, and just like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Damian? You're already taking your pants off? Come on, man. At least wait till the girls arrive. Come on. Oh, God. Shame on you, Damian. Shame on you. All right? So, probably going to be too excited that Damian Willemse taking his pants off too soon. And then the documentary went on to talk about my favorite activity in the world, the scrummaging. Now, the scrum coach's name, I'm going to pronounce his name. I'm not going to butcher his name, hopefully not. Dan Human, Dan Human, was talking about some very, very good techniques, some detailed techniques from the Springboks was working on. The one that he talked about is ship in the harbor, where like the ship that goes in the harbor, it sinks down, and like they just want to dock, essentially dock the props into position and just like hold the pressure, just deliver the pressure through that strong body position. And they talked about how Ox Incha getting his head under someone's chin, and a lot of people don't realize this as well. And yeah, so the coach Human was talking about the Springboks don't do scrummaging. Don't do scrummaging against the machine. They do scrummaging against a live scrum. They only train with live scrum, which is which is just like something that's so brilliant. But like you just wonder why the other teams don't do it. Like all the teams do machine first, and then they may do 1 or 2 live scrums, and that's it. Springboks only do live scrums because, believe it or not, the scrummaging is not just a static push. It's actually a wrestle. It's a wrestle for that tiny, tiny inches in the scrum that makes the difference of winning and losing. And the Ox Incha thing they talked about is how he gets his head under someone's chin. As a tight end prop myself, I know all about that. And the loose head prop will try to get under your chin, and they try to basically push your back out like this, and to get you out of your shape. And once you hutch your back, it's gone. It's game over. He'll just be able to run you over, and it's a loose head. You're gonna lose the feet. It's a penalty. So they talk about that. And what they didn't talk about is like when he gets under your chin, how far he gets under your chin. It's a wrestle. That's where the wrestle comes in. If he's right under your chin in the perfect spot, he can, basically get you to touch your back. If it's not far enough, it's not gonna do anything. All right, you're gonna end up with your head hanging down the side of the body, and you're actually gonna go down yourself. And if you go too far under the neck, you're gonna end up being penalized for boring in. So every inch of that, the placement of where the head is crucial. You could go from a penalty against you to winning a penalty for you. And that is just the intricacy that the Springboks working with as well. And a lot of times, the one thing that the scrummaging machine don't simulate is the up and down movement. And getting your head under someone's chin, under someone's sternum, allows that it's the full range of motion of up and down motion that comes into play, that it cannot be simulated with the scrum machine. Now, ironically, there is one machine that I've seen in my life that has that up and down mechanism built into it, and it's the England. Actually, when they came to Australia in 2023, Sir Woodward had a tailor-made scrum machine shipped in from England to Australia, and they just left it here because they didn't want to bring it back. And it's literally a machine that has 3 head holes and it has 3 hinges on it, and that actually can go up and down. So after you engage, there are 3 different hinges. Not only they can go up and down, but they can go up and down separately. I'm pretty sure they can go up and down separately. So each person can go up and down on their own. So that's the only machine that I know of. It's here in Australia that has that up and down movement. And ironically, England won the Rugby World Cup in 2003 with when there was, again, just details that comes into play, makes a difference. And that's the only machine that I know of has that mechanism. But yeah, it's just so brilliant. Having live scrum makes that difference. Then they went on to talk about the guys from living in the farms, being farm boys, and then the Springboks went to their meeting. They talk about player management time, despite the fact that the Springboks has played so many tough games. They were able to manage to rotate their players around. They actually worked out that the Springboks players had fewer minutes on average than the English players, because the England basically are fielding the same team every match, whereas the Springboks are able to rotate their players. So they actually had a better manage their workload a lot better than the England team there. And during this meeting as well, it was talked about the infamous, I guess, 5-3 split that was decided to go into this England match. Now, I didn't think that was a surprise. I thought, in fact, I predicted in my preview that the Springboks going to go 5-3 because of the fact that they wanted to play Henry Pollard in this game to see if he's able to get back into, to see if they can actually take him to the grand final. And also the fact that Henry Pollard at this point only played about 80 minutes, 90 minutes of rugby at this point in the whole calendar year from injury. And there's no way the Springboks are going to just throw him into the semi-final after only like 90 minutes of game time. And that's just way too risky. So they have to play Handré Pollard and Mane the Bok, which means there's no way they need a halfback cover, and then they need a specialist cover in Willie LaRue to cover the whole backline. So there's no way they can get rid of Willie LaRue because if Damien Williams gets injured, no one's going to cover anybody. No one is going to be covered. The halfback, so if the halfback gets injured, then they have to pull like Cheston Kobe, and they're going to be missing a winger. So it's just too risky for them. And Rasi was just like, there's no way. And all the other coaches like, oh, we need to go 6-2, we need to go 6-2. And Rasi's like, no, we can't. It's just not possible. Which I thought was, at the time, I thought it was pretty obvious they're going to go 5-3. Sorry, 6-2 was not possible. I thought they were going to go 5-3, and sure enough, the coaches came out with the same decisions. 5-3 was the decision going into this game. A lot of media attention at this point was talking about how it's going to be, again, I thought this was a little bit surprising, how the England was the big underdogs and South Africa was going to kind of easily win this one. I thought England played a very similar style to South Africa as well. In fact, in my predictions, I thought England was very, very going to be very close for South Africa to win this one. I was very dangerous. In fact, I thought England might have, if the South Africans kick the ball away like Faf de Klerk against the French, I thought with George Ford being able to drop goal 50 meters could actually steal the game if managed incorrectly in the dying minutes of the match. So I thought that was very interesting as well. A lot of the media saying that England was going to be just going to be a walkover essentially for the Springboks, and the coaches talked about this as well in their meeting, that England has a pretty good kicking game. They play a very similar style to the Springboks. And what was very interesting for me as well, they talked about how the kicking game has already been, has Handré Pollard playing in the English Premier League, has first-hand experience on a regular basis to the English kicking game, which I think is just brilliant. Having players, allowing players from overseas to play for the Springboks has given the Springboks that edge, right? Again, same thing with Vincent Koch that came into the scrum and winning the scrummaging to win the game for the Springboks. Vincent Koch has been playing the Wasp before he went under for a very long time in England. So he's used to all these English players in the scrummaging like the back of their hand. And same thing here. They mentioned here, like the Handré Pollard playing in the English Premiership, knows the kicking game pretty well. So they think that's going to give him the little bit of edge as well when it comes to managing the game. And also, they talk about they want the players to be personal in terms of the defense. They want the players to imagine that it's the child that's standing behind them, that the guy is trying to run to hurt your child. You're going to put everything on the line to defend that try line as if your children is standing on it. So that's something that I think, again, really, really interesting to say, the mentality they wanted to bring into this game. And finally, in the pre-match talk, Rassie Erasmus basically said, we don't want it to be matching up the English levels. We want to be leading and have the English match our levels. And again, I think that is not just the mentality. I thought that was really interesting. It's not just the mentality for this game for the Springboks. It's how Rassie Erasmus carries on about his life. It's his mentality of life. He doesn't go out there and try to steal ideas from other coaches and try to bring it into the Springboks and make it work for his team. He's the one that's setting the trend that everybody else is trying to learn or change the law, I guess, to stop to try to learn from him. So he's the one setting the trend. Other people, other coaches are trying to match up to his level, and that's the mentality that he carries on in his personal life, and that he wants his team to also carry on onto the field. Now the game, the documentary went on to talk about the game. It's game time. Immediately the Springboks wasn't doing well. The English kicking game, as expected, was giving the Springboks a lot of trouble. It was a bit rainy. It was a rainy day, and the rain has really affected the game quite a bit. The Springboks was visibly frustrated. A lot of mistakes, dropping balls left and right, losing their own lineouts and all that sort of stuff. The one thing that I thought the Springboks probably could have exploited in this game was potentially Cheslin Kobe against Elliot Daly, who was on the wing in this for the English team. And I thought the Kobe has a speed and agility advantage over Daly. But just getting the ball to the outside channels under the wet conditions was very, very difficult. So it was just not going to happen. And so, yeah, that was really nullified because of the weather, in a sense. And then, out of all the frustration, 32 minutes. I'd forgotten about this. 32 minutes. Man in the Bok was pulled off the field. 100 Polar back on the field. And the coaches were talking about this. And Man in the Bok was pretty gracious about this and pretty classy about this. Like, he's like, yeah, I wasn't performing. It's a team thing. I don't mind coming off. I recognize that I was not doing well. And then, they talk about this experience, the importance of having experience on the field. 100 Polar has done it before. Jackson Ninaba was talking about this. And sure enough, he went onto the field like he's never missed a day for the Springboks. Kicked the goal right away. And, again, it's like, you wonder, like, if Eddie Jones has any idea about coaching to think that he can bring rookies to a Rugby World Cup without any experience and win it all. It's just absolutely absurd and laughable, right? Even a player like Man in the Bok with so much, experience in big games couldn't handle the occasion like a Rugby World Cup quarterfinal, a semi-final. And you think that a bunch of rookies are going to do it for the Wallabies? Come on, man. Like, it just shows, the pressure, really. It's like what Mike Tyson said. Everybody has a game plan until you get punched in the face. It's the pressure. When you get hit in the rugby field, everything goes out of the window, right? One thing I did think was interesting, like, despite all the dominance England had in the first half, they were only 12 points to 6 ahead. And, again, it comes down to England mentality. I feel like they probably could have gone for more points if they had pushed for tries instead of just kicking penalty goals all day long. But that's beside the point. After the game, halftime, in the change room, Rassie Erasmus, again, just showed how brilliant that he was at managing the psychology of his players. He didn't say much. This is not like one of those Michael Checkers epic halftime rant, grabbing players' jerseys, swearing on everybody, and then getting everybody G'd up to play in the second half. He didn't do any of that. He went on in the change room, and he just made it short, concise, and brutal. And he basically said, stop blaming other people, take responsibility. Don't look at each other like it's not you. Just take your responsibility, and you either fix it or put your hand up, and we'll replace you. Yeah, very brutal, very concise, and it's not much of like prolonged abuse. And he knew if he had gone for too long, he wouldn't have got the response that he wanted from the players themselves. He wanted to just say enough to get a response from his own players, and that was it. And he wanted the players themselves to pick themselves back up, because you can't you can't just whip the donkey and make it run. You have to get the donkey. Yeah, you can't just keep whipping the donkey because he's not gonna keep running. You just whip it a little bit and then he starts running, and that's kind of what he was doing here. And sure enough, Peter Sef-Toy stood up and just told everyone, "Hey, get on your feet, guys. We're not over. Get yourself out of, get yourself ready. We're going to play in the second half." And just really, and that's exactly what Rusty wanted to do. Just a tiny bit of poke and had the players to stand up for themselves. And Peter Sef-Toy, a quiet guy, based on what my understanding, everyone is talking about, stood up and carried the team back on his shoulders. And that's what Rusty wanted. Personal self-motivation, not having a whip cracking onto them constantly to get the players to get motivated. Also, the coaches obviously didn't show this in front of the players. After the players went out on the field, was literally having a bit of emergency meeting in the coaching box after all the players has gone out on the field, right? Because they don't want the players to see everybody, the coaches having a bit of panic meeting about this. And the coaches are like, what do we do? What do we do? Everybody giving ideas. And the coaches were just like, okay, put on earlier players. So they made some early changes. Again, just the mental psychology of these coaches. They know they don't want to show the players they're panicking. They don't want to show the players that they're angry, and they let everyone out. Just give them enough to get themselves onto their own feet, and then they work behind and just try to fix everything they can, without the players seeing what's the pressure the coaches were under. And then the show transitioned into talking about Ox Incha. Salads don't win rugby is his sister. Fox Incha was wearing a shirt, and they talk about how he was, his life, he's growing up, playing a prop. And yeah, it's just really brilliant. And then sure enough, it goes into a scrummaging where Incha was talking about the dark arts. Yes. So the So what happened was there was a knock on by Curdy Ardens 5 meters in front of the try line. England's gonna run this in. Everybody's scared. This was not looking good. The South Africa have not just win a scrum, but get a penalty to get a turnover. And Ox Incha was talking about dark arts. He was like, I just let Sinclair come through on him, and then he burst out as soon as the ball comes in. And this was so brilliant, actually. It's not just the fact that he let Sinclair come into him. He coiled up his legs, right? He loaded up all those weight, and he burst out. It's not just that, right? It's just how, like, the rugby IQ that goes into the intricacy of the scrummaging. What actually happened, right? The fact that he allowed Sinclair to come forward a little bit means that Sinclair overextended himself. So he has actually detached a little bit between him and his lock. And that's number one. And number two, because the ball hasn't gone in, Sinclair is going, oh shit, I have to hold up, otherwise it's going to be a penalty. If you push early, it's going to be a penalty. So Sinclair is actually in the process of holding himself back, and with that little change of momentum, Ox Incha loaded up his weight onto his legs, already coiled like a snake, right? Like a rattlesnake, and he just bursted out as soon as the ball came in, and then Sinclair was just gone. And it was just brilliant. Absolute brilliant strategy in the scrummaging. The dark arts, he said it, but it's just, it's more than just allowing him in and pushing. It's, like I said, it's a wrestle. It's about putting your opposition off balance, putting your opposition in an awkward situation. It's a fight. It's a wrestle for those few inches. And Sinclair took the bait. And scrum penalty, saving the boys, saving the young man out inside. And he was like, I can't believe the forward saved me. And sure enough, the game went on. A penalty, another scrum penalty. They went for the line out, went for the maul. The Dion Fourie crashed the try line, almost scoring. And then Achi Snyman, the Viking himself, put his hand up, rammed himself through for the try. Springboks down within 2 points. And finally, I still remember the scrum, the most famous / infamous scrum in the world of rugby. Vincent Koch coming off the bench. Relatively, he was put on the field relatively late. Like, maybe he only had 20 minutes instead of, 35 minutes that they normally have with the bomb squad. He came on and just absolutely destroyed the scrummaging. Penalty right in front. And I remember this kick. I saw 100 Pollard kick this one so perfectly, so beautifully. It was like 50-something meter out on a bit of angle. It went straight out. Like the sound that he made when the boot connected onto the ball, just crisp, clear, pop, bang. And then he just went and just sailed perfect. It was so beautiful, this kick. And I still remember when I was watching this live, just swearing for like 2 minutes. I was just screaming the F word. And it was so good. And so good. So beautiful to watch. And clinching the Springboks ahead by 1 point just before the full time. And then Springboks held, eventually finished the game. And boy, and then afterwards, the documentary ended with Bungi Bunabi crying in the changing room. It's just rugby, guys. It's just rugby. 28 minutes in this review. Thanks for watching. It's almost as long as the documentary now. And I really appreciate you being here. And have a good one, guys. I'll see you guys later for the news. Cheers.